Like, share and subscribe for more great content. In this video we discuss why men and women will have to unlearn everything they know to rebuild their lives and relationships.
Hey guys, before we get started, I would like to give a shout out to our channel sponsor Bityard. Bityard is a new Singapore-based cryptocurrency exchange whose main focus is to enable simple trading for its users even with complex contracts. The registration process takes less than 90 seconds and all you need is an email or phone number to get started. Every account gets access to the daily mining feature. Now check this out. Just for logging in every day and clicking the mine button, you earn free cryptocurrency. As part of their promotions going on currently, you can earn cryptocurrency quickly and easily by claiming 1 USDT, so that's USD Tether, just for creating your account. Then 2 USDT for verifying an email and participating in their demo trading feature. Everybody has the ability to participate and be an affiliate with Bityard at www.bityard.com/KOL. There you can get your own affiliate link. You then have the ability to demo trade with 100,000 USDT. You can find a link to Bityard in the description of the video to see more of what they have to offer. And again, thank you Bityard for sponsoring this video. Now on to the show.
In the 1960s, feminism began to become the talk of the town. Radical feminism began to take hold of the public and the minds of women in the 1960s, and by the 1970s it had gone full mainstream. Feminism shifted its message away from equal access to equal representation. Since then, the number of women to men in education shifted dramatically, with women by the 2000s outnumber men in most universities, and by 2020 women making up for up to 70% of all students on a college campus. The 60s and 70s were also a time of change for men. The Vietnam War broke out in the 1950s, but the US then decided to enter in the 1960s, specifically 1965 to be exact. Steve Quozo of the New York Post explains it this way. He writes, "Who hates the baby boomers? Both younger generations, the Xers and the millennials, who blame those born from 1946 to 1964 for all the nation's ills, from crumbling bridges to income inequality to the luxury voyeurism of Downton Abbey and the Real Housewives franchise." Now 41-year-old author Bruce Cannon Gibney is telling us how he really feels with his new book, A Generation of Sociopaths: How the Baby Boomers Betrayed America. It will surely be the Bible for slackers whiling away their time on Snapchat and strategizing how to avoid paying off student loans. The book reads as a blanket indictment of America's real and imagined failings of the past 50 years. It downplays that global economic and geopolitical tsunamis have swamped every land on Earth and points instead to a kind of genetic fecklessness and selfishness uniquely common to all boomers. But a chapter on the Vietnam War has one, but only one, very sound foot on the ground. It accurately recounts that the manner in which the 1960s military draft was conducted was catastrophic. It gave a relatively easy out to 15.4 million mostly middle-class, draft-eligible young men between 1964 and 1973, compared with 1.8 million mostly working-class and poor men who were called to duty. Quozo further continues. The cruel divide between those helpless to avoid the draft and those who could widened the gulf between America's haves and have-nots. It instilled permanent, free-floating liberal guilt among mostly white, college-educated young men who legally avoided being called to arms, and who knew that the bloody burden among those conscripted largely fell to poorer Americans, both black and white. Gibney admits it was all perfectly legal, but scolds, the fact that a system permits exploitation does not mean a person must engage in it. But had Gibney been alive at the time, he'd grasp why legal draft avoidance was neither sociopathic nor treasonous. President Lyndon B. Johnson, a greatest generation warrior who fought in World War II, didn't merely permit draft loophole exploitation. He tacitly promoted it, perhaps out of fear that Americans would mutiny over a truly universal call-up. Draft avoidance was a snap even for a working-class guy like me who worked in a supermarket and scraped through college on a state scholarship. There were several ways out, including dubious, minor medical conditions. But the easiest out was simply going to college. Undergraduate enrollment kept you safe from the draft until you earned a degree. Many crafty students took just enough courses to stay in school but stave off getting a diploma for years on end. Even graduate students were deferred until February 1968, and those who were already in their second or later year of graduate school as of October 1967 got to keep their free ride. Threading the loopholes didn't make us feckless, selfish, unpatriotic bums. Legally avoiding the draft was a rational, morally defensible rebuke to the government's hypocritical way of making war. A war truly essential to national security should spare no one from duty except those hobbled by serious medical or psychiatric problems. So, despite LBJ's claims to the contrary, he didn't regard the war to be as vital to American interests as he insisted it was. And if the war wasn't necessary, why give up campus pleasures like sex and football parties for possibly killing or being killed half a world away? But, even if our Vietnam engagement was militarily justified, it was socially and culturally disastrous to make it optional for millions of able-bodied youths. It's crucial to grasp this going forward. Although President Trump has not suggested bringing back the draft, some defense experts and even a few politicians have done so. The nation most to fear is North Korea, which has threatened to reach U.S. cities with its missiles. It's worth recalling that in the Korean War of 1950–53, our last major conflict before Vietnam, college deferments were granted, but only until the end of the semester during which a man was called up. Our goal in Korea wasn't dissimilar from Vietnam, to keep a northern, communist state from overrunning a pro-Western southern state. Although that was achieved in Korea, it might have been another story had President Harry Truman undercut morale by allowing indefinitely extended deferments. For all our great and wonderful diversity, America is, or should be, one country. Citizens, despite differences on a million issues, should feel that we're all in this together. But a sense of shared purpose is tossed to the wind when there's a perception of escape for the privileged. Among Vietnam's legal draft dodgers were Trump, who stayed out of harm's way thanks to bone spurs in his feet, and Bill Clinton, who used a marathon manipulation of deferments until the fighting ended. A no-exceptions Vietnam-era draft would have avoided, or diminished, the class and race divide that haunts us today. I've long believed it would have produced either of two possible results: we'd have whipped the enemy within 6 months, or quit just as soon after deciding that sending lots of privileged youths to their deaths was too high a price. Either outcome would have been better than the long, bloody stalemate that cost 58,209 American lives without preventing the fall of South Vietnam. Quozo finishes by saying, "Either would have brought the two Americas together rather than turn them against one another, a spiral of mutual alienation that's accelerated ever since." Simply put, the boomers began dodging the draft, with only the most unfortunate Americans being forced to go and fight. This allowed a large number of boomer men to develop a sense of entitlement. For the first time in history, they had successfully dodged a draft. Before the draft-dodging boomers, military service was seen as almost a rite of passage for men, and something that could never be deferred based on socioeconomic status, and yet this is exactly what happened. Left to their own accords, the boomer men, and women, whom had now begun to become highly wrapped up in radical feminism, spent the next several decades restructuring society, to avoid women from having to do domestic work, and men from having to serve in the military. Even in the 90s during the Persian Gulf War, that war was not fought by boomers, it was fought and won by members of Generation X. The boomers have been America's most entitled generation for the last 70 years now, the most entitled generation in history at that. When women began complaining about wanting equal representation in the 70s, they expanded this to also special privileges, and they got them. They received special health care benefits in the billions available only to women, special education grants for women, even jail sentences became judged around gender and not crime, with judges being told to give women special consideration in sentencing compared to their male counterparts. All the while this was happening, the boomer men could care less, because they were lining their pockets with the money of all generations. Many were able to work simple jobs, but were able to pull in significant incomes doing trivial labor. The boomers lived off the futures of their children, and the wealth that the parents of their parents, members of the greatest generation, had struggled and fought to build after the Great Depression. The boomers also divided up their kids, teaching girls that they should no longer date men based on potential, hence their peers, such as men they went to school with, and instead date men with assets, such as older men. This was done by the boomers to ensure that their daughters could then go out and collect wealth and resources for their boomer parents, to create an even larger nest egg. They taught their sons to serve, and do as they are told, and never to question authority, even when such authority is corrupt, because the authority of society. Ultimately, for men and women to survive, thrive, and prosper, we must all forget the lessons that the boomers taught us. Women must forget feminism, assessing men as partners based on what they have versus their character as individuals, and accept responsibility that come with the rights they now have. Men must learn how to be men again, gain confidence, and pride in themselves and in their countries, and feel a sense of self and ownership in relation to their countries and their countrymen. This will not happen overnight. In fact, for most in the millennial generation, it's likely already too late, as most millennials are entirely wiped out psychologically, socially, financially, economically from the indoctrination they were taught since grade school all the way through college, the massive amounts of student loan debt that they were carrying, and various other factors that occurred because of the boomers, or that was deliberately done to them by the boomers. For men and women to survive, they must go their own way, abandon social politics, groupthink, and work towards rebuilding a relationship with the opposite gender, as well as with each other, regardless of ethnicity or cultural background. Men and women must begin learning how to think critically for the first time in their lives, and to begin questioning the things that they are told, rather than following them as though they are a form of gospel. The U.S. economy cannot be saved. The label feminism is dead, but the legacy of feminism, hence the fallout, division, and distrust between the genders, will live on for decades. It is instead up to the individual, regardless of what generation that they are a part of, to change their thinking, abandon everything that they have ever known, or at least think that they know, and to begin searching out and seeking answers for themselves. So do you agree that men and women must unlearn everything that they presently known about each other, the world, society, and especially their parents' generation, if they wish to survive and thrive? Also, check out our cryptocurrency business starter kit linked in the description. The kit includes a free Facebook marketing kit. When combined with the cryptocurrency business starter kit, will allow anyone to start their own cryptocurrency business, no matter what that may be. Like, share, and subscribe for more great content. And we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.